Hello, everyone. I'm the Bodacious Cowboy with my co-host, Christy Knichel. Are you ready for a special edition of the Storytelling Chronicles? We are. Let's go.
Look out! Pop, it's showtime. Showtime. Guess who's back again? Oh, they don't know. I bet they know as soon as we walk in. I'm wearing Cuban links, designer mix, Inglewood's finest shoes. Don't look too hard, might hurt yourself. Known to get the color red, the blues.
Well, hello, everyone. I am the Bodacious Cowboy. Welcome to another episode of the Storytelling Chronicles, empowering women into logistics. We have a great guest coming on board real soon. Christy, how you doing?
Doing great. Glad to be back and doing this wonderful interview today. So excited for it.
Yeah, I can't wait to start the discussion. And who do we have on board today?
So let me tell you about her. So we have the lovely Grace Maher, who is the COO of OTR Solutions, America's most trusted freight fintech company. OTR Solutions provides industry-leading technology and financial services, tools, and support to help carriers start and grow a successful operation. Trucking companies and brokerages of all sizes turn to OTR to receive reliable financing and back-office solutions, field programs, up-to-date news and education, and technology and innovation to prepare them for anything and everything. Driven by a passion for building success-driven processes and products, Grace combines over 13 years of experience in the industry with a relentless commitment to her innovation. Her strategic approach has not only fueled business growth, but also scaled operations efficiently, with a sharp focus on optimizing operational expenditures. Grace's leadership is defined by her ability to develop robust systems and build exceptional products. Grace founded OTR Solutions Women in Logistics chapter in 2015, and the group is committed to empowering and recognizing influential women making an impact in logistics and expand their growth in the industry through scholarship and professional development. So let's bring her on out.
Absolutely. Hey, Grace, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Great. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy day to join Christy and myself. We look forward to hearing your story because it's an incredible story for sure.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here. Like I said, it's great to meet you, Christy. It's great to see you again, and I definitely appreciate the invitation.
Yeah, well, we would love to just start off with like hearing about your journey. Like, how did you get into logistics? You know, way back when, maybe even before the whole, being at OTR for as long as you have, and I guess even added in there, what do you love about it too? So,
sure, yeah. So I got into logistics by accident. I feel like so many people say that. But I did, and such a blessing. I had been an auditor for 5.5 years. Prior to that, actually, though, I had worked in retail all through high school, and, I worked full-time through college. And I worked for companies that either were a small boutique, so you had to give, great service, or people are not going to shop there. Or it's, or I worked for Nordstrom for many years, which was honestly, it's a fabulous company to work for. And, but obviously their competitive edge is also service. But shortly after I graduated from college, my dad said, I did not send you to Georgia Tech to work retail, so you will go find a job and a career. And so I went and I worked in public accounting for 5.5 years in solar credits and low-income housing tax credits, WIN credits. And after my, 5.5 years, I wanted change, a little bit more quality of life, those busy seasons or something else. And to be honest with you, I felt like I was good at that job, but I wasn't great at it. When you're going in and you're like, I feel like everyone else around me gets this so much more than I do. But I also just, as much as I loved who I worked with, I didn't really love the actual work. And so I called my cousin Bobby and I said, hey, listen, I think I need to find a new job. If you hear of anything, let me know. And Bobby had gone to high school with Kevin Nolan, who had started Nolan Transportation Group. 3PL and, one of the country's largest freight brokerages. And I knew Kevin. I knew Kevin from going out to parties in college. And so when Kevin said, or when Bobby said Kevin had this company, I was like, really? What do you do? And he said, well, we make sure that the trucks come back and they're not empty. And I was like, I don't think that that's a job. And he's like, it is. It's definitely a job. And so he said, why don't you come in and talk to Kevin? And I came in. I remember what I wore. I remember Kevin behind the desk, and I remember Kevin sold me this amazing story, how he was building a freight brokerage. And, I was completely bought in and believed him. And I thought, I want to be a part of something like this. But he told me, I don't have a 40-hour job for you. Like, accounting, recruiting, HR, none of that. And he's like, and I can't really afford to pay you, but if you work here, you can build a career here. So I took a $50,000 pay cut, and I worked for Kevin doing HR and recruiting, which is hilarious if you know me, as far as HR, and then recruiting. And then I would also help out with accounting. And I loved it, but I understood this was way different than what I'd been doing. I'd worked for a, public accounting, very conservative. And all of a sudden I was in an office with freight brokers and phones ringing and people screaming, and you'd pass, the can for coffee. And at that time, carriers were calling in and saying, I factor, but I hate my factoring company. Kevin's like, I think we can do this. And so, essentially one day a carrier called in. Kevin's like, I'll factor your bills. We've got you. And that was it. And OTR began. And I said, I would like to take a look at the paperwork and figure out if we should buy it and if we shouldn't. It speaks to my audit background. I would really like to be a part of this. I asked for the opportunity, and for about a year, I did both, work between both companies, because we started with like 2 or 3 trucking companies, and after about a year, I had to pick one, and I naturally had picked OTR, and the companies have since divided multiple times, and there is no common management because that's a frequent question, but it's a very long-winded answer. Sorry, but I got into this industry completely by default, but it was one of the greatest things that's ever happened.
Yeah,
and a huge risk that I took. So well worth it.
Yeah, I love to hear that. Especially, we just talked about this at my company. It's like the fact that Kevin sat down in front of you and sold that to you, and you believed in his vision to come in the business, I think is very powerful, because that's what we talk about here. If people don't believe in my vision and what we're trying to build too, you got to make sure people are on that boat. So
definitely.
Yeah, passion matters, right? And there's a difference. I think you can see the difference between like doers and people that are like convinced this is happening. And Kevin was convinced this was happening. But what I also understood was how much emphasis he put on team. And like, I've always played sports. I love sports. I grew up, my dad and my uncle helped raise me. Or both of them raised me. And so I feel very at ease in that competitive, you will get it done type mentality. And Kevin is very much like that. He's going to expect the best. And therefore that trickles down to everybody. You show up for your team. You need to be a player for the team. Like, we're not going to win unless we all do our part. That was very much ingrained from the beginning, and that is something that has always, like, to me, that matters most, because I joke, like, I used to post Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen all around the office, because like, be the Michael or be the Scottie, but just pick one. Like, Michael needed Scottie, and Scottie obviously is, I think, very underrated, poor guy, but that team, that Chicago Bulls team, was pretty awesome, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an understatement. Yeah, but it's you mentioned passion. Like when I came into the job, I didn't have any passion for it. I mean, it grows on you once you seek to understand and then to be understood. And then you start seeing all the different things and the mechanisms, how things go. You just kind of like fall into an area that best suits you. You don't think you're going to fall in there, but all of a sudden you see yourself there and you're moving forward and you kind of fall in love with it. And next thing you know, you're in for 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. It's amazing though. It is.
It's so true. Like I didn't realize how big and meaningful this industry was until I was in it. And yet it's small too, because I think, once you're in, you're kind of in, right? And I will say, as the years have gone by, it's definitely, I think, for people entering the industry, it's really tough. And not that it wasn't tough years ago when we got into it, but like certainly like work was sort of assumed, like work is tough, right? And now I feel like that there's a little bit more like, does your work give you meaning? Does your work fill your, because like honestly, even years ago I used to say like, if there's anything you should be selfish about, it's your career. You spend more time here than you do with your own family. Like you should enjoy it. But trucking's tough. We're on the side of paying carriers. So I can assure you when things don't go well, like it's rough. I mean, the conversations that I've had over years and like things that I've been called and, but I'm able to sort of, and it's not that it didn't fire me up. It did, I was really upset, obviously, but I also was like, I'm dealing with a trucker. Like it's fine. Like, not that it is fine, but for me, it was just part of it. And in fact, I think sometimes I would, people maybe thought I was full of, crap, but I'm like, in those moments, that's when you build trust. Because if I can get the guy that's at a 10 or 12 back down to a 4, because I'm like, listen, Bob, I'm hearing you, but like, I'm on your side. I'm going to help you. And, you would turn that conversation around. All of a sudden it's like amazing. Bob's never getting pissed at you again. So, it's amazing. And I have a lot of passion for what we do, but I will say it's tough. This is a very tough industry.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think it's even tougher what you guys are doing too. Cause like you said, if people aren't paying their bills and then you're having to deal with the carriers too, wanting their payments, and that's a whole nother side of things. So like what helped you make that decision to go to OTR Solutions versus stay where you were at?
Yeah, that's a great question, Christy. Because when I first came to NTG, Kevin's plan for me was to become the first female freight broker at the company. And I thought that sounded really, really cool. And I was definitely up for the challenge. Looking back, I wonder what would have happened if I had done that, But for me with OTR, like I said, it naturally spoke to the audit side. At the time too, I was doing a lot of the recruiting for NTG. There's still people at NTG. I think maybe only 2 or 3 that I actually hired that are still there. But Kevin had plans to start traveling around to all the career, the colleges and career fairs. And at that point in my life, I didn't love to fly. I didn't love to travel. But truthfully, I also absolutely loved the idea of building a business. I loved the idea of building this business with the people I was doing it with. Fritz Owens, Clayton Griffin, Chris Ebel, Tyler Dortch, looking back on the men and women, Nicole Corrigan, Alex Otteson, the day that she started, she was moving the office. I'm sure she thought she was going to be at a desk. And instead we're like, take this box, we're moving offices. But I worked with incredible people that it was, for me, it really wasn't a question of whether or not, and also we had decided we were going to be an industry leading factoring company, and people thought we were crazy, but we would say we will be an industry leading factoring company. And I wanted to be a part of that. NTG was, taking off, and other offices had already been opened. And, I was sort of on the corporate side of the business. And with OTR, I could do all of the things. I would be operations in the morning and finance in the afternoon and sales before I went home. And that was really cool because I got to be a part of every aspect of the business. and our hiring and our, plans and what should we do next and our, SOP creation. I mean, all of these things, like I got to be a part of, and that to me was not something you walked away from,
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. And obviously, like building the company from the ground up like that gave you the opportunity to not only see it all, do it all, but then obviously work your way up that ladder to where you're at today, which is phenomenal.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. So do you have a good bit of women in that company in particular?
We have amazing women. We do. We have a ton of women. I don't have the stats on me right now, but I would want to say, almost 45% of leadership is women.
Nice.
We have so many women. I remember years ago, a woman that was working for us, I loved, and she chose to leave OTR. And at that time, it was like a stage where like people didn't really leave OTR. I would joke when you signed a piece of paper, you were here for life. But she did. And I remember asking, like, why are you leaving? And she was like, I just don't know if I can have a family and like work here. And at that point, no woman, myself, nobody had children. We were working, we would skip lunch all the time and work through 6:30, 7 o'clock because you couldn't go home until the last invoice was paid. This was at a time where like the business was being built. Like we were all grinding.
Yeah.
And so I applaud. We have a ton of veteran women that have been here 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 years that have hung in there and helped us build a business around women that can have families and get married and have children. And, myself, I have an 8-year-old now, and I do need flexibility that I never would have required before. But it's a fine line between, not to go ahead and jump into that, but like, there is a balance, and like, I still have to show up for all the things, if Fritz and Clayton can get to the boardroom, I should too. But at the same time, I'm a single mom some weeks, and I've got to prioritize some things. But what I love is that this company has evolved as the women have evolved, as the men have evolved, and gotten older, because we used to hire straight out of college. And so everyone was like 25, 26, 27. Now we're all like, I've got baseball practice, and, I got to get home to the second and third baby that was just born. So, the company is maturing, and that's awesome too.
Yeah, no, it's great to hear that they've been able to do that. So that woman stay, or did she leave ultimately?
She did leave, but that was one of the reasons she left. And when she left and she told me that, I was floored, right? Because I didn't want anybody leaving, because that's why, they would think I can't have a family here. But which is why I applaud all the women that did stay, right? Alex Otteson is one of those that, like, we didn't have a lot of things when she was the first to have a baby, and like she, was patient, but like it looks so different than what it looked like before. I mean, even when I, had my child, like we didn't really have a lot of the things that we have today, like, paid maternity leave. And so it's just, we've come so far, but people don't realize, like, even as little as 8, 9 years ago, like this industry, like we didn't have maternity leave, like, but we have so many things now. We have volunteer days now, and work from home and paternity leave. It's come a long ways.
Yeah, no, that's good to hear. We actually put in a paternity, like for the men as well here. And even our company size with the people, like, you don't have to follow the FMLA or whatnot, but we have a policy for giving the women. I'm a mom too. I have a 14-year-old. So we know that it's hard. And then there's single dads out there too. Same thing. It's probably a struggle for some of them men out there as well. So I do think being flexible can really be helpful, especially if they're doing the job. They're putting the effort and the time and doing a good job. There should be no reason why we're not flexible with the people to help them.
Yeah, most recently, I mean, over the last decade, a lot of these companies have day school for the kids, where moms or dads can bring their kids in, and they're in the same building. They can take lunch. They can go visit their kids, and be there with them. And you're seeing that kind of stuff evolving, which is great, because women are getting noticed more, and they have more demands than men. So that's why they're trying to accommodate them as much as possible to make them feel at home when they're not at home.
Yeah, no, it helps. And I'm just going to say, we just moved into this new building and it has a daycare on site.
Does it really? Nice.
Yes, it does. And that was one of the reasons, why they have a full blown cafeteria and gym. But it was always my dream to be able to provide some kind of daycare or have it right next door. Right. So it would make it easier for the people to want to come work for you because they know that you're going to help them on the other side. So.
Yeah, we have this summer, been talking about how we would love to set up something like that in the summer. All of the working moms over the summer, what are you doing? And what camps are your kids in? And the camps are from 9 to 1. I'm like, who does that help? But, men and women, look, I think society has changed. So many households are dual income now. It's this idea that the working female is always a single mom is not the case. So many men that I work with are juggling the same things. Their wives work and their wives have demanding jobs, and the baby gets sick and the baby has doctor's appointments and the baby's got, and then you have a toddler and, young child and they have practices or ballet. I mean, I remember last year, Lainey, my daughter, was in ballet, and it was on Mondays at 3, which is the worst time for a working mom to, and, my ex-husband took her to 90% of practice because I couldn't necessarily leave on Monday at 3. And do I love that? No, I do not. But do I understand pressure is a privilege at times too? And you know what? I want her to do ballet. And he was like, I absolutely can accommodate that. And, I can't ask the ballet studio, could you make this at 5:30? Because working moms really need 5:30. But all that to say, thank God for, I co-parent really well with my ex-husband. He's a phenomenal dad, and I am grateful for him. But so many of the men and women that work at OTR are balancing the same things, whether they're divorced or not. They've got multiple kids and multiple places to go. And I think as an employer, that's where it comes in, is how do you demand excellence? And we're high achieving, and we are, get it done organization. But we also have many, many awesome employees that have young children and are trying to balance a family. And so, that I think is really important to make sure that everybody feels like they have that balance or they have that flexibility. And we do. I think we do. I think we really support each other well.
Yeah, I like that. I like the fact that you said, obviously as you grew, you continued to build that out, because that's kind of what happened with us. Until someone had another baby, right? 2 years later, it's it'd be nice if you'd tweak this in the policy or whatnot. So we continue to build off that too. And I do think it is important to have that out there, because I do think there's still a lot of companies that don't do that. We actually just had a guy that had a baby, and his wife had 1 week, and that was it. He had more time with us than she had with her position. So
yeah,
just definitely interesting. That's for sure.
Yes.
Yeah, and then you see a lot of guys staying home. The wife is the money maker. Wasn't that 25 years ago wasn't the case. And the guys are stay at home dad and taking care of the kid. Nothing wrong with that, But you're seeing more and more of that. When my daughter was born, I told my wife to quit work because I didn't believe in anybody else raising my kid. It's just something that I wasn't fond of. And so, we had this belief that don't worry, things will come around. We'll get through it. And we did, and when you're working in logistics, very tough environment, like you said, Grace, so much pressure, so much stress, it's not that 9 to 5. It's 5:30 in the morning. Sometimes it's in work at 4, out at 7, 8 o'clock at night, and then where's dad? Where's mom? But it happens in this, and it's unfortunate, but that's why a lot of divorces happen and other things happen, because it's just a demanding field. And you get into it, you have to have that mindset that things aren't going to be like a 9-to-5 banker's job. It's just not there. And you got to learn. You just have to learn to adapt. It's very tough for both men and women.
Well, you said you have a good bit of people in or women in your, management, I guess, within OTR Solutions. Like, how do you, I guess, see that evolving, like maybe from when you first came into the industry? Do you feel like there's a lot more women that are even interested in that? Because I have a lot of women that work for me too, and there's a good bit of management, but I'm just curious from your side of things.
Yeah, look, I think we hire excellent people, whether they're men or women. As far as the women, women are very detail oriented. Women, I feel like women at times feel like they have more to prove, right? They're like, I'm gonna get this done and I'm gonna do it well. Women are also a lot quieter. They're not necessarily going to walk into the office and say, I did this, that, or the other. I know, speaking from experience, like I just hope that people notice that I'm doing something or I've done it well. But there's a fine line between humility and then making sure you're owning something and recognizing what you're doing. I think that that's what I try to make sure that the women here understand is, if they want those management roles and if they want to continue to move up, they have to own it and they have to use their voice and they have to make sure that everyone understands like what they're doing and what they're evolving and what change they're bringing and how it's improving the business. Because otherwise women are just really, I'm going to sit here, I'm going to get it done. They're going to notice that I'm a top performer. And yes, that happens. But I'll tell you what I've noticed more. I've noticed more that women oftentimes are like, I'm really happy with my role and this is great and this is stressful enough and I'm really good right here. Whereas, more often than not, over the years that I've been in my role and, I lead a lot of people, which I absolutely love. Probably men come in here 4 times more than women asking for opportunity. And over all the years, all the conversations I have, men always want to know what more do they need to be doing, or they'll tell me what they have been doing, or they'll tell me what their plans are for their career. And women don't necessarily do that. And I find that surprising at times. It's like they don't advocate for themselves enough.
Yeah.
Why do you think that? Because when I heard a lot of women, I always told them exactly what you said: speak up and be heard. Yeah. When you walk into the boardroom, just don't sit in the corner and not say anything. Speak up. I mean, if you're right, and we'll listen. That's how you move up. You can't just sit there and just, like you said, just do your job, come in the morning and leave and think you're going to be, noticed. No, you got to do a lot more than that. And I always tell women, do that. Don't feel intimidated. You're strong. Get out there, speak, be heard. People listen to you.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know why other than it's an intimidation factor or it's, in the moment, it's really uncomfortable. I have painted on my wall right here, there's no growth in the comfort zone and there's no comfort in the growth zone. And I'm convinced that when people get uncomfortable, they've got to push past that. Mm-hmm. I heard that actually years ago. It was like one of those things where I was like, that's an aha moment if I've ever had one, because it's so true. And I feel like, every year I try and give a training on like how to have difficult conversations. And I think people assume I just mean difficult conversation, like the angry trucker, right? But I mean difficult conversations as like a manager, leader, as an employee talking to your manager. You have to manage up. Everybody just assumes I should wait for whomever's leading me or managing me to come to me and tell me what's next or what I need to work on or what I need to do. But there's like action in managing up. There's action in having those conversations. And I don't know if it's just ingrained in men that like their role is to continue to like push their careers forward. And women are more like, I've got to prove to you that I can do it and then you'll give me more. but I remember, Sheryl Sandberg, she wrote the book Lean In. She was the COO at Facebook, right? Yep. And she says, and I don't remember a lot from the book, and there's probably some polarizing things. So without getting into all that, I do remember she said that statistically, men will always apply for roles that they've never done. And women will not apply for roles if they don't feel like they have the experience, they know exactly what the role requires, that it's something they've done before. Typically, obviously that's not my experience. I was, I have not known how to do a lot of things and had to figure it out. But that's what I try to hope, if somebody's watching or if I'm encouraging anyone, it's like, figure it out and own it. And, even if it's not right, just then say it didn't work out and we're going to try something else. But if you don't, she will or he will, and so if you think you can, then you need to own it and you need to do it. But I don't know why. I hope what more women will, but I think some women are also just okay with where they're at and don't necessarily want the same level of pressure potentially that some other men will take on, not knowing what that looks like.
Yeah, and you bring up a great point. Women need good coaches and mentors like yourself, Grace, or Christy, who've gone through those obstacles, who've jumped over those barriers. I know Christy does a lot of mentoring and a lot of coaching and helping the younger folks out there. If those who are listening to this, reach out to Grace or Christy if you've got a problem such as this. You can get over that. You just got to be lifted. You can't climb without having somebody lift you and support you in all areas. So reach out to them.
Yeah, I think it's funny because I think I had some of those same issues you talked about working for my dad. And it's like he put me in a role as president, CEO, but I couldn't even do the role because he wouldn't allow me to really make the decisions. And then eventually I convinced him to give me the 51% because I knew I had to step out and have something behind me to say, okay, now I have 51% and you can't tell me that I can't do this. Because I will tell everybody that I felt I've had to prove myself to my dad the whole time. Even though he put me in that position, I still felt I had to prove myself because I quit college. And he would always say, we need to hire people that have college education. And here I was, quitting school to work for him full time. And I was just a hard worker with a good work ethic, just doing whatever needed to be done. But again, I still felt I had to prove myself to him for so long. So
I can't imagine the pressure of that, honestly, Christy. And I think it's amazing what you do. And I absolutely love seeing you in your role and that you dominate and you do things like this, and to Jeff's point, I do mentor other women and, and I'm always happy to work with other women. But I also think it's important for women to reach out. Like Jeff just said, I don't necessarily walk out on the floor and scream, who needs a mentor? But if someone reaches out and says, hey, will you work with me? 1,000%. What day is breakfast good? And I do have women that lean on and lean in and talk to and ask questions. But I also talk to a ton of men too. For me, yes, I want to see women evolve, but it's everybody needs support,
I agree 100%. And right before we go to break, I'll finish this up. But, I've been mentored by men, obviously, and women and vice versa. And I do think that's important because you get different perspectives from different people. And I will say this past year, though, was probably the most usefulness of the mentoring and reaching out to the people because it was a really tough year for me to get through. And obviously, I had a couple conversations with you guys, but we got through it, turned the leaf, and now coming out on the other side. And I don't know that would have happened maybe the way it would have without, my passion for it, but having the people to support and that I can bounce things off of and have questions answered about, what do I do here? It's so important. So, but yeah, we're going to take a quick break and go to our sponsor real quick, and we'll be right back. All right. So our wonderful sponsor is Talento. We help companies grow with the right people and the right support. At Talento, we start by understanding your business goals, then guide you toward the talent solutions that make growth possible. Whether it's strengthening your team with nearshore professionals or identifying smarter ways to scale, we offer tailored support directly or through trusted partners. Because sustainable growth takes more than hiring, it takes clarity, strategy, and the right connections.
Logistics moves fast, but is your hiring keeping up? Struggling with high turnover? Hiring taking way too long? Talent costs soaring through the roof? It's time for a smarter solution. Meet Talento, the future of logistics hiring. Nearshore talent tailored to your needs with a faster hiring time, stronger teams, and top-tier professionals from Latin America at a fraction of the cost. Skilled, reliable, and ready to make an impact. Scale smarter, hire better, and stay ahead with Talento. Ready to transform your team? Book a call with us at talento-io.com to learn about our faster, smarter, and limitless solutions today.
Awesome. All right, and we're back. So, I was going to say, so we left off with talking about mentoring a little bit. Obviously, you've probably had some good mentors in your life. I mean, are there a couple people you feel like have been, a really profound effect on you and building your career?
Yeah, yes, absolutely. I do have a mentor, Mike Pitcher. He knows he's incredible. And I chose a male mentor years ago simply because I work with very strong men. And truthfully, I wanted to be able to get super vulnerable with a man and what I was struggling with to hear how he would take it. You know what I mean? Like if I'm struggling with this problem or, oh, look, this is the lights go out. Hold on. Sorry about that. And also just because he's been a CEO of a very successful business that's won Atlanta's top places to work, literally as the number one place to work under his leadership. And that matters to me. It matters to me because be someone that runs a successful business, but being someone who runs a successful business that people want to work at, that's impressive. Like I want what you have. And so, I would ask him to breakfast. I would always pay. I think, that's really important. Like, he would give me his time. I will absolutely make sure I'm buying that meal. And I would always follow up. And then it became, after a while, it's like, he's checking in on me and he's seeing how things are going. And he's, and if I think I screwed up something, I call him and I'm like, I think I screwed this up. And he's giving me legitimate advice and like understands. And, and there's other women too, Tamala Koval, she is an incredibly successful woman in the, apartments type, rentals industry. But she showed me what it meant to be a working mom. And I think that that's really important too, because there are trade-offs, right? And understanding like when I am with my daughter, like what that looks like, and that's being present, and that's, yes, not feeling guilty to turn things off. But I've had some awesome mentors, specifically outside of the business, because I work so closely with my partners and I love them. And certainly there's an element of mentoring there where it's like your strengths are not my strengths and my strengths are not your strengths. And so hopefully like we rub off on each other a little. But I did go outside of the business for, a lot of advice, and I've met with women in the industry too, which is always really nice. But I think we need more of that,
Yeah.
And when I say more of that, I mean, there's plenty of women in, trucking or logistics or whatnot type of thing. And that's not a reference to any of the organizations. But when I went to one of the last ones I went to, it was just a day thing. And one of the sessions was like emotional safety. And I left there thinking how sad I was that we had such powerful women in a room, women that are working in like AI and robots and, and massive brokerages and like distribution and warehousing and supply chain, all these different things. And rather than talking to each other about like, what are you doing in your business and how are you scaling and what are you looking at efficiency wise and what are you building right now and what are you doing, the way that honestly you put men in a conference, like that's what they're talking about. What's happening? What are you doing? What are you building? What should I invest in? Maybe we should partner. And it was like we were in the room talking about emotional safety.
Sad.
I think we can go a little further than that.
Yeah, when you mention about mentors, here's a kicker. My mentor was a woman that I hired, and she was a preacher's wife, and I was an ogre, man. Nobody wanted to deal with me. My personality was just set in my job and everything, and so I went to her, and I was like, Kim. Her name was Kim Parker, and I love her. It's been many, many years, and she put me in my place. She straightened me out. And she told me everything that I was doing wrong as far as how she received me and how I was talking to women in general. And she flipped me. Guys out there, please talk to a woman too, to see how you're coming across. I mean, it's very highly beneficial for you to do so, because if you talk to a guy, you're always going to be a guy talking to a guy. It's a whole different ballgame when you talk to a woman. You ask them directly, hey, how am I treating you? How am I taking care of you? Are you getting everything that you need from me? What is missing? You can do that. And I strongly advise you to do so, because it will be one of the best damn things you ever did in logistics. I swear to God. It's true.
Well, it's just, I feel like sometimes, there might be guys that don't talk about it, but I'll say here, we've had leadership training, right? And a coach for my people here. And a lot of them, it was a male coach. Then I switched to a woman coach because it's like, hey, let's see how this goes, because most of them were all women. And then my COO, who is a male, wanted to also work with her to better understand how to work with women better,
right.
Which I thought was pretty cool, that he brought that up. But now I'll say him and I both actually have the same mentor. It is a male. And what I like about that too is not only do we work with him separate, but then we come together to try to work on things that maybe, we need to figure out, or we don't see eye to eye or whatnot. But, and that's from a professional standpoint, like one that I'm like paying, to be in training and stuff, but it is so important. I like the fact that you said working with a male, because you're dealing with very strong personalities. And for me, that would have been challenging, probably still is a little bit challenging. I don't have like very strong personalities, but I want to still get toughen up and be able to truly be able to carry myself better in those conversations, or in general. Just, I had to become a different leader this past year, and I didn't know how to, without like, say, being like bitchy or coming across the wrong way or whatnot. And that was something that my coach was able to help me with, how to figure that out.
Yeah, I love that you said that, because you were like, I don't want to come across as bitchy, which is hilarious, because if a man comes down on you, he's tough. He's upset because you must have done something not as good as you could have, and not to the standards that the business expects. And so to come down on you is, that's an appropriate thing to happen as a man. But when a woman does it, do it carefully, do it tactfully, do it, maybe even behind closed doors. Let's have a meeting. Like, I have absolutely defended women in the organization when someone was like, she comes off X, Y, or Z. And I'm like, okay, well, tell me how this person or that person, Joey or, so-and-so would have done it. Because I can assure you it would have sounded just the same or even worse. And so we're not going to make her feel bad for coming down on an employee the way maybe they should have, just because she's a woman.
Right.
And that's really important to me, because I, not that I think anyone should be disrespected or talked down to, but I'm saying, like, there are times where, especially, when you've worked together a really long time, where conversations can get a little heated, like, and it's okay to disagree. But what's not okay is that, one side of the coin can, show passion and get upset and be tough. But as a woman, I need to stay composed. I need to stay unemotional. I need to stay, and I've had to learn that, honestly, because I will typically meet someone where they're at. And so, if it gets raised, I will meet you right there. And and then all of a sudden it's like, well, now this has gotten too heated. And it's like, no, no, not at all. No, like, but I also can get heated. Anybody that knows me knows I can get heated and get upset and within 10 minutes be fine. Like, I don't hold on to things. I think it's really important. I love as much as I, get upset. I can be passionate on both sides. So.
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, you just made me think when I said that. Like, I don't even think about it. It comes out that way, that's what I'm thinking of. I don't want to come across this way. Help me come across a different way. But it's like, this is just who I am and how I've always been. But because we've come to a spot in the business where things are just tough, and it's like, I know I had to lead differently. I just didn't know how. So I had to work on that with someone to figure that out so that I could be more stern, or whatever word you want to use to come across. And I will say it was very uncomfortable. And I love just going back to your uncomfortable saying on your wall. I mean, that's what we've been preaching to the team here too. I mean, get comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yes.
You aren't going to grow. You're not going to make changes as well. And being uncomfortable, even in a mentoring situation. I mean, that's what pushed me to grow outside of my comfort zone. Just being told and looking inward of things that I have to do differently. What always worked to get you here isn't going to work to get you to the next level. So, but speaking of that, let's change gears real quick. Well, not necessarily change gears, but we talked about you creating a woman in logistics group at OTR Solutions. Can you talk to us a little bit about like why that happened and what's that about and how is it going?
Yeah, that was something that I started in 2015, actually, when OTR and NTG were somewhat together. We were in the same building at that point. It was also just to bring the women across organizations together to understand both sides, the brokerage, the financial piece of factoring, fuel, but also to give us some camaraderie. Back then, it was like the guys would go play golf, and there was a lot of activity that the men could do together, but the women, wanted us to feel as close and supportive and talk to each other and uplift and what are you doing, and honestly, it's just evolved. Now, OTR, Women in Logistics organization, every year we do an influential leader, and votes are cast by our clients and, our partners for women who are doing things in the industry, either within their community and, doing great things in the logistics space. And we've had some fabulous winners, and, there's a grand prize, but really it's the acknowledgement that there are women that are very influential, who don't get propped up and who don't necessarily have, tons of followers on LinkedIn and, a social media presence that says like, I know all the things, but like, the numbers behind these women are impressive. They run awesome businesses and they should be acknowledged for, for what they do.
I love that. So how many women would you say are like a part of it? Do you think everyone in both companies, or is it just?
Well, NTG, like I said, they're completely separate. So we don't, we're not necessarily doing the organization together anymore, but here it's, you don't have to be involved. We do events all year long. We do charity events and that sort of thing. And I think the women come as they can, right? Like,
Right.
We have great participation. Our committee leaders, Laura, like phenomenal, making sure that we've got, things scheduled. We have people coming in, we have speaker meetings. And so, I hope the women understand that like it's meant to be a value add, but it's really just meant to be community. I think people love being part of community and like having interaction that feels like, genuine, involvement. So whether it's like yoga in the back, which we did a few months ago, because we have a huge space that we can do something like that where we have town halls and that sort of thing. But or it's, clothing drives for a women's shelter right around the corner. but we're just trying to make sure that we stay connected, together, which is, we also have teams chats for moms, and we have mahjong chats, and we have, pickleball. And so like, we try to stay pretty connected, with each other, and everybody's got groups, and that's good. And I always say, like, everybody's got to be the glue,
Yeah. No, I love that. I think that's great. So one of the other questions I wanted to ask you is, because I'm just curious from your aspect, or your side of the business, but what do you think is one of the most or the biggest misconceptions in our industry in general?
Misconception in the industry in general.
Yeah, like how people, something they think the industry's about, but maybe it's really not. I mean, I think one of the things I'll say is, I think, when people don't even realize they go to the store, and where does that come from? The product, how does it get there? And a lot of people will think, okay, you just pick it up and you deliver it. And it's like, there's so much more that's involved in shipping freight.
Yeah, I guess, when you say that too, it's the biggest misconception, I think, is that, like, there's only, you see all these larger names driving down the highway, and you're like, trucking is just like, they should have it together. They should all know what's happening. They should all be great drivers. They should all be, like, the freight's moved by like 6 companies.
Right.
And people don't realize that the freight is moved by hundreds of thousands of independent trucking companies, mom and pops, and people who, are feeding their families by running a trucking business. And, I think that's why I try to always make sure everybody here understands that, like, what we do truly does matter, because, like, we are absolutely essential to a trucking company's business and their operations and getting them paid. And so, yes, I know the carriers can be tough. And yes, I know if we don't get them paid, sometimes they say things that they should not say, and they should not treat you that way. But to them, this is absolutely their livelihood. They are scared, shitless that they won't get their bills paid, that their insurance isn't going to get everything. Every cost is going up. We, had the Iran-Israel stuff, and diesel's going up, and it's like, nobody's paying the carriers more necessarily. Like, every little bit is a squeeze. So I think this misconception too is, like, you're going to get into freight, and the freight ferry is going to show up, and she's going to load your truck, and she's going to give you lots of freight, and you're going to make all this money. And it is so damn hard. When I'm on this side of it and I watch people come in, and I like, you need a factoring company, and they're like, well, I don't want to have to pay for a factoring company. It's like, no, you need a payments company that is helping your business. I can assure you the statistics show that you will do better with the right partners than trying to do it by yourself. But just how fragmented the industry is, and how, like you said, everything we use was, on a train, on a truck, put into a warehouse to be put on a shelf. And it truly matters what we do.
Yeah, no, I agree. I don't think it's highlighted enough. Obviously highlighted a little bit during COVID, but I feel like that kind of went away. And
yeah,
it's definitely interesting. Well, what would you say is, like, next on the horizon for just you and or OTR Solutions?
Yeah, I don't know. With OTR, gosh, I wish I could tell you, like, I joke all the time, what must it be like to be at a business that's just like self-sustaining and running? Like, I feel like we've been grinding for years, and that's just like our default setting. It's like, we never feel like we've accomplished like everything and we're done, and then on top of it, technology is evolving, so quickly within this industry. Almost 14 years ago when I first started, there was no technology. Like, carriers were still faxing PODs, and rate cons, and, there were no portals and apps. And somewhere over the past, the past decade, these things are all coming into play. And now you've got AI and all of that. So, for OTR, it's like, it's so fun. I've been involved in so much progress and so many like trials, and and what should we introduce now, and what should we do next, and so I think for us, it's absolutely continuing this evolution of technology in everything that we do, from payments to banking to, and for brokers and carriers, because, we have ePay Manager. So,
Yeah.
We've got a lot of great things on the horizon. Instant funding's happening in, this month, which we're already doing, where we can pay brokers and carriers at any time, which is pretty incredible. So it's just keep going, keep pushing the limits, keep at it. There's never a dull moment. I can tell you, I do not watch the clock, which is really nice.
Yeah. No, I can imagine that is really nice, because before you know it, your day's over and you're like, okay, I got through today.
Yeah. Someone once asked me, they were like, do you think that OTR defines who you are? And I didn't know if I should be like offended by that, like, because the way that the question was asked was like, maybe like, and I thought to myself, I mean, a little bit. Yeah. I mean, how could it not be? This has been, what I absolutely, I swear on everything. Like, I absolutely love the people I work with. I do love what we do and think it matters. I have seen us evolve over all these years. And so, yeah, like, when I bought my first car for myself, I put a license plate on the back that says OTR cap. And because I was joking, I should give credit where credit is due, right? Like, this job career has given me so much. And so yeah, does OTR define me a little bit? Sure. But how could it not? Like, it's something that I love immensely, and I've been doing this for so long. And and I realize at some point life is all about impermanence. So, there will be change, and things do change. And so I embrace where it's at, all the time. I try to just pause for a second and say, this is pretty awesome.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, I don't think you would still be there doing it if it didn't help define you, because your passion for it, right, has to be there for you to do what you do.
Yeah. Well, and it doesn't mean there aren't hard days. Like, Chrissy, right. I'm sure there have been moments where you're like, I just want to tap out. And Jeff, like, I'm sure I know how passionate you are about fraud. Like, just because I love what I do doesn't mean there hasn't been hard. And it doesn't mean that there haven't been times where I thought, like, can I keep doing this?
Right.
Like, I'm tired. There are moments where I'm like, I'm tired, and or something doesn't go right, or you feel like you disappointed someone. I hate that. That's the worst. It's like, no one's going to beat themselves up more beat me up more than I will. But like, I never want to disappoint other people. And sometimes I do that too, without meaning to. And so it's a lot, I say pressure is a privilege, but this industry is, there are times where it's been really tough. But one thing I know is that, like, everything in life is cyclical, and no matter where I go, there are going to be moments like that, whether, so, but this is where I want to be, and I'd rather at this point, like, this is the team I'd go to battle with any day,
Yeah. To your point, the industry is changing so fast. It's almost like you have to reinvent yourself in order to stay on top, because what's here today, especially AI and all the apps and the tools and the technology, what's here today is going to change in 6 months or even sooner. That's how fast it's evolving. And you think back 45 years when I started, and I didn't have that kind of stuff. And I say it all the time, to where we are now and going through that evolution. Do we have far to go? Yes, we do, because we've got that far in 45 years. What's the next 45 years going to bring to the industry, and what is it going to look like? You have to try to outthink the thinkers and be there around the curve before everybody else gets there, because that's how fast it's going. And you're absolutely right. It's so stressful, and you've got to control the controllables that are in front of you. Everything else pushed by the wayside, or it's going to take you out. It will take you out. That's why you always have to reinvent yourself and be on top of everybody else if you want to survive in this industry, because it's tough.
It's oh, go ahead, Chrissy.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, it's not always easy at all. But I remember when I got home from Disney and I walked into Fritz, our CEO, I walked into Fritz's office and I said, I don't want you to ever be upset about our mobile app again. And he starts laughing and he's like, why? I said, because if Disney can't get it right, if Disney of all companies cannot have a fully functioning, very, intuitive app, and not that we should ever settle because we're always looking at our app, but it's like,
Right.
we care because people have to go into our app to get paid. So, that app has got to work. It's got to work great. It's got to be intuitive. It's got to be, but I was, laughing with him, but I'm thinking to myself, the employees that are at OTR, if you have a tech issue one day, like that throws everybody's day off. The business has to function. The business has to function, not just for the client, but for the employees as well. So yeah, I mean, everything's evolving. But I had lunch. Oh, I know what I was going to say, Jeff, really fast. I had lunch yesterday with a friend and we were talking about this actually. He's in the industry as well. And he said to me, Grace, nobody wants to be BlackBerry. How in the world do you go from a company where everybody's got a BlackBerry in their hand and now they're nothing? And I said, I know, Blockbuster,
Yeah.
everyone is evolving. Like which way, you're either a part of the evolution or you're watching it trying to play catch up. And
Right.
I don't want to watch,
Yeah, you want to be a part of it. I think the other thing I was going to say too is, as tough as it is, because you're right, it's not easy. I don't know that there's ever really an easy day. There might be lighter days,
Yeah.
but not maybe easy. But I will say it's made me a tougher person, a stronger person, mentally, not physically, but mentally. And I don't know that I would be as strong as if I didn't go through all those things that we go through on a daily basis to get here. But to go through it and still want to be here every day is another thing too. So.
Yep. And an old adage that comes to me that explains what logistics is all about. That is eat or be eaten.
Yeah.
Plain and simple. You got to be on top of your game day in and day out. Today is gone. Tomorrow's going to be different, and it could be quite different. It all depends because it's a blindsided industry. You never know when you're going to get hit by that God knows what, but it's going to happen. You just don't know the timing, and you got to be prepared for that. Mentally, probably physically, because if you're not strong mentally, it's going to affect you physically because you're going to take it out on your body. So yeah, you got to. You're so right, Grace. You got to be on top of your game for sure.
Well, unfortunately, we're coming to the end of our show, and I have one last question for you. I always ask if there's one piece of advice you could give anybody out there, what would that be?
If there's one piece of advice, it would be to own your opportunities, truly own your opportunities. And that's getting that uncomfortable. It is, there's no growth in the comfort zone and there's no comfort in the growth zone. And so if you're feeling uncomfortable about having a conversation, like have it anyway, also manage up. I truly think like using your voice and building relationships, that's what really gets you ahead in the business. And someone could say, well, that's playing the game or that's favoritism. No, it's not. Because you can't assume that someone knows what you want and what you're capable of if you're not having the conversation about it. Because I can assure you, if you're not having the conversation, someone else is. And so if you're asking, why are they getting the opportunity? Probably because they're asking for it. So
there you go.
Yeah.
Love it. Well, thank you so much for sharing your journey with us today. It was awesome to hear.
Thank you so much for having me. This is so fun.
Yeah,
I appreciate y'all.
Well, where can people find you at?
LinkedIn, they can find me. I'm also on Instagram, but I post a lot of work stuff there too. But yeah, LinkedIn.
Okay.
Grace Maher OTR Solutions, or grace.maher@otrsolutions.com.
So I said your name wrong, huh?
It's okay. I'm completely. Don't worry, everybody. That does not bother me at all.
Well, I get the same thing, so
Yeah.
I'm used to that. I should have asked, but I didn't.
No.
So, but good to know.
Yes, it's okay.
Well, thank you so much, Grace, for joining Christy and I. We had a great conversation. We hope that you'll come back and join us, in the near future.
Yeah.
Let us know how you're doing and how OTR Solutions is evolving, because I'm sure it's going to change from today next time we meet. So I appreciate you coming on board.
Thank you so much. Anytime. I will come back anytime. You all are wonderful, and hopefully see you at industry conferences soon.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, everybody, for joining another episode of the Storytelling Chronicles, empowering women into logistics. We will see you the next time. Have a great week and keep on digging in. What else? There you go. See you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.